Chris, would you please start recording? Welcome everyone to our regional blended learning webinar. Our goal today is to have a conversation around best practices in blended learning, and we're excited that this is a cross-Nebraska webinar. The first thing that we would like to ask you to do is to please come here to bit.ly blend name and fill out this document to let us know which conversation you would like to participate in. Please know that if we don't have a lot of participation tonight, then we'll have a large group conversation, but this will help us inform our conversation and decision to have breakout sessions or not. Second, please visit this Padlet page that includes information that has been shared from our rockstar teachers from across our cohort 1 pilot. These resources include what does blended learning look like in my classroom? What are the tools that I use in my classroom? I'd like to open this up now for introductions. Please share with us your name, where you work, and what you teach. So for example, my name is Nick Ziegler, and I am the Technology Integration Specialist at ESU 5. Let's open it up to others in our meeting.
I'm Eileen Barks from ESU 2.
Otis Pierce from ESU 7.
Chris Good from ESU 1.
Jared Johnson from ESU 2.
Patty Finney from ESU 17.
Scott McIntosh from ESU 1.
Greg Hicks from ESU 13.
Hey, I'm Peg from ESU 10, but I'm in my hotel room.
I'm Scott Jones from ESU 15 and 16.
I'm Lauren Rayborn from Shelby Rising City High School.
I'm Rose Rowan from Rock County Public Schools.
Amy Party from Freeman, 3rd grade.
Chris Nielsen from Bassett Grade School.
Wonderful. Anyone else?
Melinda Cromer from Shelby Rising City.
Outstanding. I see Bob. Hi, Bob. Bob Floth, I see you. Hello. Bob's not talking. That's okay. I see more. Anyone else? Wonderful and welcome. Please do come here to our bit.ly /blend and name, and that will help us organize our breakout sessions here in a moment. I'd like to especially welcome Lauren from Shelby Rising City to our conversation. Lauren, would you like to say a little bit more and share with us a little bit more about your experience with blended learning?
Sure. Okay, so this is, I guess I lost count, 4 years maybe of doing BlendEd in my classroom. It started off pretty small with just 1 unit for one particular class and has grown to all of my classes. Almost everything that I do has some sort of BlendEd to it, whether they're stations or kids working at their own pace, or a mixture of Mrs. Rayborn and the kids just doing a little bit of everything. I've shared several examples. I have to apologize that I don't have a lot of new stuff as I just got back from maternity leave. So what I have is just little bits of things that I've done so far this year. I guess mostly I like to do a lot of self-paced things with my kids because I have such big groups. It's hard for me to, I guess, have a lot of stations in such a small space. And I think the kids like it that way. The amount of feedback that I've gotten has been huge over the last several years with classes. After a unit, I always ask for student feedback, which has been my biggest resource of what to do next and how to plan for my next unit or whatever it is we might do. Kids have been huge for what we want and what we like, what we don't like, and those sorts of things. I don't know what else you want me to, if you want me to keep going.
Well, that's a great introduction.
Okay.
Thank you, Lauren. Rose, you are here as well.
Yes.
Please introduce yourself a little bit more.
Okay, I teach in Bassett, Nebraska at Rock County High School. And I guess I'm back and forth between the grade school and the high school. I do 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math and English. And this is only my second year doing BlendED. I started with my English classes, my 7th and 8th grade English classes last year. And my goal was to move into some of my math classes this year. But I decided I needed to take a step back and really look a little bit deeper at what I was doing with my 7th and 8th grade English classes. So I'm still focused more on those two courses. I have been doing a lot of station rotation with them. And then this year I have been doing several more self-paced lessons, throwing in some hyperdocs here and there and kind of doing some things like that. So I wanted to do everything at once, and I realized I needed to slow down a little bit. But
Sure.
the kids have been responding very well.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Are we joined by Lauren, Brandon, Patrick, or Deb?
I do not see them on here.
I can share a little bit about Lauren Swanson.
Sure.
Something came up and she unexpectedly could not be with us tonight, but she wanted me to say that her contact information is there on the Padlet and she would be happy if anybody wanted to contact her. Lauren she's 2nd grade, and I think most of her activities that she's put on the Padlet there are with a math rotation that she's done. But you will notice that she's done a lot in her room with flex seating. And I know that she has said that she doesn't know if she could ever go back to, having a classroom with desks, and because it's just working really well for her. So if there's any questions on anything that she has posted, I can try to answer those, or she'd be happy to talk to somebody after tonight's meeting.
Outstanding. At this point, I would like to cede the floor to Otis Pierce, who will lead us through our conversation here.
Yep, I think we'll just go ahead and stay here as one big group. And so I'm going to toss this out to Lauren and Rose right now. Rose with you being in for a year, and with Lauren having several years under your belt, whichever one of you wants to go first. What were some of your year 1, year 2, your first couple of years successes that you've seen in your classes? Rose, if you're ready, why don't you go ahead and go first? You're muted, Rose. That's all right.
Sorry, I just got kicked off and had to jump back in here. So
Okay. So what are some of your year 1 successes?
Year 1 successes. I feel that the kids are more engaged, and through our school system and our ESU, we have kind of jumped into the Danielson model, Danielson framework, and that was something in our Danielson training that they really talked about was, the difference between just being on task and actually being engaged. And I feel that, you know, kids are so immersed in technology, to have some of those things included in their rotations, it's really been a wonderful thing in my room. And I know Patty had mentioned that Lauren was doing flexible seating in her room, and that's something new that I tried this year, which that'll be more for second year stuff. But I just noticed the kids more engaged in the lessons instead of them just zoning out while I'm standing at the front of the room talking.
Okay, Lauren?
I guess I'd kind of like say the exact same thing. The engagement level of all kids across the board, from my lowest level learners to my highest, has been probably one of my biggest successes that I've seen all years. And I think that it's grown more and more the more that I do things in my classroom and the more other teachers are trying things as well. And then I guess I've gotten a lot better at not always teaching to the middle with a lot of my bigger groups, because I have just so many more tools to be able to hit the low kids and the high kids all at the same time without anybody knowing any different besides me and what the kids are actually working on. So that's been pretty huge. Sorry, my baby's crying.
Oh, you're fine. So those of you that are maybe in your first semester of doing this so far and have just been doing this first year, in that short time that you have been doing it, what successes have you seen, if there's anybody that would like to share?
I'd like to follow up a little bit more on the differentiation there. Lauren, could you talk a little bit more to how are you able to differentiate better now with BlendED than you could before, for example?
I've noticed with high school, it becomes a lot easier, I think, to do things self-paced and to let kids kind of go rather than feeling comfortable, I guess, maybe at that elementary level. And sometimes at that middle school level might be a little bit difficult as well, trusting that kids are going to be doing those things. So putting the basic same kind of outline on Canvas for my kids has been huge. And then those conversations and things that I have with them individually as I go around the room or in small groups, I can differentiate that way. Or I do with test scores, I break kids up into groups based on those sorts of things. And the conversations are very different, but we're still getting the same stuff that they're learning as the higher level kids. And my higher level kids, I spend less time with, and they don't seem to mind. And the feedback that I get from them is I prefer this because I don't have to feel like I'm dragging my feet, waiting for everybody else to catch up. And the work that they do is like nothing I've ever seen before. So they have a extra 3 days because they got done. And so the extra 3 days goes into that final project, and you can tell the amount of learning that they got out of something versus some of my other kids. I like the LMS because I also, if I have a really, really low kid, I can create something completely different for them, and they could be working on a completely different unit than everybody else, and nobody knows that. And so that's been kind of nice to be able to use that, and nobody knows any different also.
Lauren, I just want to hold the baby, okay?
Oh, I know. I would love to give him to you.
Can I just hold the baby? That'd be good.
Melinda, you were going to add something on one of your successes.
No, I just thought the kind of just what Lauren was saying. I had kids who have the ability to go far above and beyond, and being able to give them some sort of a self-paced, individualized program where they can just zoom through the material to the point where they find something where they are learning just at their current level has been wonderful. And I guess just trying to keep up with those kids and keeping it interesting for them has been kind of my biggest challenge.
Okay. Go ahead.
I just have a question for you two. I have the question comes to me quite often about how do you do that extra stuff with your higher level kids without them feeling penalized that they have to do more work? Can one of you talk on that?
I can. I have usually at the end of novel units that I have a set date to start and a date to end. I have a section at the end that has a list of probably 15 extra things that kids can do. And I think I had my most this year. I had about 5 kids get to one of those, and not one of them complained once. They're fun things, but they're kids that want to learn. They want more. They want to be challenged. And I think that that's the biggest thing, is recognizing that in those kids and giving them something fun, and they get to choose. So I don't know, I have kids make videos or make different projects or do all these different things, and then they get to show them off. And I guess I haven't had anyone say, oh, well, I don't want to do that. Or when I tell them that, hey, just because you're 5 days early, you still have things that you can be doing. Or I haven't had the, oh, man, or any of those kind of moments, I guess. Maybe I'm just lucky.
I see the same thing with my upper level kids. Like, the programs or the activities that I'm providing them with, they're really excited to get to. And if they're not excited for them, then I discuss with them, okay, what exactly do you not like about this? And we try to rearrange it because they do want to learn. They want to keep moving. And so just finding that activity or that extra material to help them out with that. But I really haven't seen a huge issue with kids complaining about having to do more.
And so what I hear from both of you is that the activities that you're asking of the higher level kids are not busy work per se, right? I mean, it's deeper level application and actual then demonstration of their ability to meet those objectives. And so giving students choice, talk a little bit more about that. So what kinds of choices do you mean?
I guess it's a variety of things to hit all levels of kids. I've got kids that they love art. And so to be able to use those skills, like, I'm amazed by some of the things that they can do with a novel and the artwork that they can put with it, and explanations as to why they chose what they did, or some of the things they put into videos and how creative that they are. I don't know. Sometimes some kids struggle with, well, what should I do next? Or what kind of thing do I do? And so I guess just letting them know that it's okay that you like to build something, so build me something. Or you like to write, so write me something. Or all of those sorts of things. And I guess just letting them know that they can use those strengths that they have to show me what they learned in their best way, I guess.
Melinda, what would you add to that?
I'm thinking of one specific student that I have that's really gone above and beyond. He'll finish up an activity or he'll finish up an assignment, and just finding what he's really motivated for. So he really loves to just push himself into, I don't know. One activity that he recently completed was putting together almost like a Thanksgiving meal and having to find the cost of all the products. So it's putting them in the moment of something that we're learning right now with adding and subtracting and multiplying, but then putting it in real life context for them as well. So that's just another piece that we add to it as well on that.
And I'm knowing this, being, helping Shelby Rising City, helping Lauren and Melinda on this as well. And Lauren, with your self-paced models, because I know you probably know where I'm going with this, where you say, here's the start date, here's the end date. How do you help keep students on track going with that, knowing that, hey, you have this to do, so that they can see what's happening?
Okay, well, I've tried a couple of things. The best thing that I have done is create a giant chart that everything that they have to do and their name, and I put it on the wall somewhere. And then something as simple as a sparkly smiley face sticker is a huge motivator, even for juniors and seniors in high school. And so as soon as they get something done, we've talked about it, they get to put a sticker up on that assignment, and then they move on to the next thing. So every day they walk into the room, they get to see visually where I am. It's kind of a motivator because they get to see where 20 other kids are. I get to just look up without having to log into my grade book and see where kids are, and see what they've turned in. I've also had them in like reading groups doing a book club type thing for a novel, and I had a calendar in each of their folders, and they had to plan out their time for me. So I kind of put it on their shoulders to tell me, okay, so today this is what you're going to do. And usually it was about every 3 to 5 days I had them planning, depending on how many kids were in and out of the classroom for a variety of reasons. And then I kind of challenged one class to just kind of to go. They had 2 weeks to get these things done. Well, then kind of that nerdy student in me, I created a chart for myself to chart where the kids were, because I was like, okay, well, I've got 24 kids in this class and 20 things that they need to get done. And I've got one that's done with 19. I've got one that's done with 3. And so for me to keep track of those things, I did that for myself because I like that tool so much. But yeah, something as simple as just seeing that, and whether it was I don't know, even for kids, if you had like different magnets, like race cars or something for them to just see that, little things are huge motivators for them.
Rose, how do you kind of keep those high flyers that may get done with some things ahead of time? How do you differentiate for those kids that like to go above and beyond?
I typically do similar to what Lauren was talking about, just making sure that there is a handful of I don't want it to be busy work, so I try to make sure it's something that still goes with what they've been working on, but such as making some type of video or analyzing the text and putting that into a video, or like she was talking about, artwork, or even I have a couple of kids who really enjoy teaching other students, and they're very good about explaining things to each other, maybe even in a different way that I just couldn't quite get through to them. And so I might even offer for them to, like, hey, why don't you help so and so with this part of what they've been working on, and just to see their collaboration. I've had other teachers ask me, well, aren't you worried they're just going to give them the answers? But that's not what it is at all. They have great conversations, and they learn so much from each other through that. So sometimes I'll do that with my higher level learners. And then I even have some of my lower level learners asking if some of the other kids could help them with something or talk them through different things. So I try to do a lot of, student collaboration.
Have you kept any of those from year to year so far? I know you're just in year 2 right now, but have you kept some of those videos that other students have maybe created as examples, or if they're creating those videos to help teach a piece, have you kept those for future years?
I've actually used some of them, as student examples. I think it's so much more effective when students see other students' work as opposed to just my stuff. Mm-hmm. So yes, I have.
Okay. In thinking back to that first year that you've done, Rose, what challenges have you faced, maybe from yourself, from your students, kind of fight back from students, maybe even some pushback from parents? What kind of challenges have you faced so far in going to a blended classroom?
I think, honestly, my biggest challenge was probably myself at first. I was pretty overwhelmed. I felt like I didn't have any clue what I was doing. And then when I realized I wasn't the only one, then, I just kind of went with it. And I think the best advice from one of our meetings was just take it, baby steps. And so that's what I started doing. And then also I did have pushback from students and I remember Lauren talking about this in one of the meetings that we had previously. The kids actually have to do stuff. Instead of just being passive listeners, they actually have to get involved and work together and actually do things. And so that was probably one of my biggest challenges. And then also I have I have a really huge class of 7th graders last year, which is now a huge class of 8th graders. And so just, figuring out my, how I wanted to do my rotations, I didn't want that stuff to be busy work. I wanted it to mean something. So I think those were honestly my biggest challenges. I didn't really have any pushback from parents once they really, truly thought about and understood what I was doing. And our administrators were very supportive. So that was helpful.
Lauren, what challenges have you had?
I would say in the beginning, it was the doing stuff. We have to do so much more than we did before. And I kind of chuckled at the kids that would say that, because I thought, okay, but that's definitely changed. The kids love coming in and hearing from me a little bit and then doing stuff. They said that's, you learn by doing. And so they're starting to get that. I think we had great administrative support. I think that they weren't quite sure what it looked like. So when you would kind of walk by, or you'd come in and visit my room, and you would see like just kids everywhere. And for me, that was hard to get over, because I'm kind of what at first was desks and straight rows, and that's the first thing I did every morning. And now I had like desks pushed to the side, kids on the floor, and then kids just wanting to be everywhere, kids out in the hallway, kids here and there. And for me, that was huge to get over. And then for administrators to walk by and be like, oh my God, what is going on in that classroom? But then you come in and see, and it's like, oh, okay. Other difficulties, I guess, would be keeping up with things, like coming up with new ideas and keeping up with, okay, now they're doing so much more. Okay, so I've got to be ready to go and have things for them to do that isn't busy work, but, is actually adding to their learning and hitting all of my kids. And I don't think that'll ever go away, because it's constantly just more, and kids want more. And but I guess my biggest advice is just to kind of start small, and it's okay to fail. Like, I feel like there's something that I always am changing. There's nothing that's the same from even class period to class period, or group to group, or those sorts of things. Like, it's always going to change, and know that that's okay. And know that at the end of the day, if your stations were a total disaster and crazy and didn't turn out, that pick up the next day, and kind of just, the kids don't know. I mean, they just think, oh, okay, well, we're going to continue that activity today, or don't be afraid of those things. I tell the kids that, I fail all the time. There's things that I try that just completely sucked. I said, so don't be afraid to have something that just doesn't work out. And they're like, oh, okay. Like, I'm a real person too. I make mistakes. And they kind of look at you like, oh, you are a real person now at that point. So, yeah.
And I know you kind of have it on the Padlet and everything too, Rose, is you've tried the flexible learning spaces this year a little bit. What challenges have you had with trying to go from that, I want to say traditional classroom to that flexible learning space? Have there been any challenges with that?
Yes. My biggest challenge, honestly, was skepticism from some of my administration. And I could tell at the beginning of the year, because things were different. My room is right next to the office. And every time they would stand there watching kids come in, I could just tell they were like waiting for something to happen, or, mass chaos to ensue. But I think with the way I decided to organize it, it worked really well. And then when my principal came in to do my evaluation this year, he afterward was like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. And he was really impressed with it. So I was kind of like, woohoo, validation. So that was exciting. But honestly, my biggest challenge was that. And then also my 8th graders are just a huge class for my size of room. But I have found that I actually have more seats open, having flexible seating, than I would have if I had all of those desks lined up in rows in my room. So it's really worked out well.
So what are some of the other, besides desks in your room, what are some of those flexible learning spaces you have for the kids?
I have a couch, a really ugly 1970s $25 couch, but it is clean and it works well. I have some bar stools with a higher top seating area, and just a couple little round tables. So it's kind of more like a coffee house style of seating. And I have a couple of video rockers, some pillows around a coffee table on the floor, and then just some little comfy like butterfly chairs.
Okay. Those others on here, too, we've heard from those that are, we'll call the experienced BlendEd folks that are in year 2 or 3 or 4. Some challenges that some of you others that are just getting into this, what in that first semester-ish that we've had so far, what are some of the challenges you faced?
I think one of the biggest challenges I've had this year is just not, I guess, underestimating the amount of technology skills my 4th graders have coming into 4th grade. Last year, the 3rd grade class had, they did not have one-to-one, they didn't have Chromebooks, they used MacBook Airs maybe once a week for testing or keyboard practice, but just getting them to different places on the internet or setting them up in accounts and having them understand what an email address is for. I just underestimated the amount of teaching that went into actually using technology to get to the point where they can use the technology as a tool.
Mm-hmm.
How long do you feel like it took for your 4th graders to understand that?
And we're continuously working on it every day still. Once we get comfortable being able to get to one place, like, okay, we're pretty comfortable using our Google Classroom right now, so then we can start branching out to other places. So we have like our go-to sites that we begin with to practice skills, and then we just kind of add to it weekly and just keep pushing them and
sure.
Teaching them, like if let's say I put a Google Doc or a slideshow presentation in front of them, every time I present with a slideshow or I put up a Google Doc in front of them, I talk my way through what I'm doing so they can see, oh, that's possible to do on there. So then they have little bits of pieces of information as when they get started on theirs too. So it's just little bit by little bit and throughout the year.
Anybody? Yep. All right, Rose and Lauren, you kind of went into it a little bit, and suggestions and thoughts, and Rose, yours was take it kind of one step at a time, take it small bits and pieces, and Lauren was kind of don't be afraid to fail, show kids that you are human. Any other pieces of advice, suggestions you have for teachers that are in their first year or just going to be getting started with this, with the second cohort coming in?
I guess for me, I would say connect with all these people that are listed on here, with other teachers that are experts or just doing things. Like, I think that's been the biggest part for me, is knowing that at any time of day I can email Otis, or I can email one of the other teachers in my building that's doing something, or the number of people that I've met through all of this, and get ideas. Or when you get to sit down and talk to somebody and you realize, okay, they're dealing with the same things that I am, it makes you feel like everything is validated. The successes are validated, the failures are validated, the things that other schools are struggling with, we're struggling with. And so you don't feel alone. And I think that was probably the hardest part when I first started, is it was just me. I felt so alone, like I didn't know really where to go, what to do. And so finding those things has been huge. So don't be afraid to branch out and ask people for anything and steal ideas. I mean, that's why we're all here. That's why we do what we do. We all have few minutes to find new things or try new things. So when somebody shares a successful thing, try it. I mean, make it work for you and try those things. So I'd say that would be pretty big.
Rose, you were going to add something?
Yeah, I was going to say, just the same thing that Lauren said. Don't be afraid to reach out to other teachers that you know are already doing this. You know, we're by no means, you know, top-notch experts. We try and we fail, and we're kind of going through the same thing still, even though we've been doing it a little bit longer. So, you know, just reaching out to others for resources. Just don't be afraid to do that.
And I see we have one of our other Rockstar teachers came on. Good, welcome, Deb. Good to see you. I don't know if she can hear me. In that, excuse me, kind of going on, you know, what are your goals right now going forward? You know, say we're a semester into year 2 for you. What are your goals for second semester and then going on past this year?
I would say that my goals for second semester are just to try to throw more self-paced items in there with the lessons that I'm currently doing. I really don't feel like what I'm doing right now is as tailored to individual students as it could be. So I'd like to continue to work on that, and then hopefully, you know, by next year it can be better, I guess.
So you're wanting
to talk a little bit more to that there, Rose. I'm not 100% sure I heard you correctly. And so the goals for this coming year, so differentiate even more than you're currently doing. Is that what I heard?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like in some of the rotations that I'm doing, it doesn't necessarily, I don't have everything set up just in the LMS so that students can go through it, you know, at their individual pace. And I would like to get to a point where I have that available.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Lauren, going forward, what are some goals that you have?
I guess for me is trying to find more of a way to create individual pathways for kids. I don't know if I can't wrap my mind around it all the time of how I can just, you go this way, like doing so many different things. I find it so hard when you cram 24 kids, like trying to keep track of them just doing what I set up for them to do is really difficult. So I guess I don't know. That would be something that I would like to do. So to really challenge my kids that are high ability kids and give them their own pathway of doing things and finding resources to be able to do that outside of what I've got set up already. And maybe the same thing for some of my really lower level kids. And I guess trying to figure out what that looks like even on my learning management system and how can kids go through all those sorts of things. And but I guess that's kind of huge after you get a lot more planned out. And so that's where I'm kind of future looking after year 4, I guess.
Right.
Take any ideas.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any goals they have, you know, those of you that are year one in your second semester moving forward, are there any goals that you kind of would like to going with that you've had so far or want to try as you're going forward? Probably just get your head above water, right? Is probably most of them, I would guess. So are there any of you that are in your first year of doing blended that would have any questions for our Rockstar teachers on here? Is there anybody or any ESU folks that have questions that they would like to ask?
I have one. Oh,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
Okay, I'll take this question. I'm sorry I interrupted somebody else. My question would be, I think the biggest frustration that I hear from my BlendEd folks is that it's so taxing and there's so much work to do. And I've seen the EduReady products and things on that line. Is anybody purchasing or utilizing something besides a learning management system that really works well with classroom kids in getting that individualized learning plan for each student?
And so let me piggyback before anybody responds. Let me piggyback. And so when we talk about technology that is used in the classroom, a common differentiation it includes whole course software that allows you to then track student progress specific in your class. And so not just, so the question being, what software are you using to help you track student learning?
And that question can go out to anybody, any of the ESUs, anybody out there has anybody just found that one product that says, wow, when I found this, I turned my teachers loose with it and bam, that was the holy grail.
Now, as I can kind of speak to ours, it's either Canvas. Shelby has their own instance. Google Classroom is being used as well. And then I have my other school is using Canvas as well. So they're just using the learning management system. And then they're all over the board using things also like GoFormative and a lot of those pieces. A lot of teachers starting to get into Flipgrid now. For some of those reflection pieces. So there's nothing one, as I like to say that Will Richardson says, there's no one silver bullet, but there's a whole bunch of lead ones that we shoot at the problem. So I think there's a whole lot of lead bullets out there. We just haven't found the silver bullet yet. And I don't know that we will. So I haven't found anything, Scott.
Deb, go ahead.
One thing that I'm trying to stretch some of my advanced Canvas users toward is it's called Mastery Paths inside of Canvas, which allows the instructor to do a pre-assessment, and then based on the results of those pre-assessment and the parameters that they've put around it, the students are then put on a learning path toward mastery. So if a student blows through the pre-assessment, then the teacher has already designed some advanced activities for that student. If a student totally bombs the pre-assessment, then they work their way completely through all of the instruction and activities that the teacher has predetermined. Lots of planning and development on the front end, but once it is created, it's like a customized Khan Academy experience for those students inside of Canvas.
Thank you, Chris. One more time, what was the name of that?
It's called Mastery Paths.
Mastery
Path. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has to be enabled at the your CMS will have to turn that feature on inside of your domain for you, but once it's on, then it's good to go.
Is that an extra cost on Canvas, Chris? No, it's already in there.
No, it's not. Also, another cool feature inside of Canvas, I guess I can be their cheerleader tonight, is the ability to tie standards to activities. And that is found in the Outcomes tool. You can locate the Nebraska standards, and then when you're creating your activities, you not only can tie a rubric that you've created, but you can also tie a rubric that is connected with a particular standard all the way down to the indicators. And then you can mark if the student has mastered it, if they're still functioning below, or if they're exceeding. So again, that's another great way of tracking students' progressions through those priority standards, as well as meeting the content expectations the teacher has with the mastery paths.
And Deb, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can.
Oh, perfect. I saw you come on a little bit later, and I was going to ask you, get you in on this since you're one of our rock star teachers. You've kind of heard a little bit of this, kind of what suggestions and what goals do you have going forward? What suggestions would you have for new teachers coming into this, and kind of what are some of your goals going forward?
One of the comments on the bottom of one of the other rock stars was to start small, and I totally agree with that. Start with something manageable and get your feet on the ground and make sure it's working before you expand it. Somebody said they were using it 1 or 2 days a week. I think that's a good way to start. There's just some lessons that don't lend it to doing rotation kind of things. So you do more like the whole group, but so I would say a recommendation would be start small. We use Canvas for an LMS also, and to me that's been a lifesaver this year. I put on there we're trying to go paperless, so everything for the rotations is basically on Canvas within their rotation, so that's helped. I'm really intrigued by what she was talking about with mastery paths, because that's if I have a struggle, it's when I differentiate an assignment and I make 2 different quizzes or whatever. One's differentiated down for my sped kids or whatever, but then I have to make 2, because if I made 1 and just assigned it to certain kids, it doesn't go to Power School. So I don't know if it's something anybody else runs into. So I've gone to just 2 of the same quiz, excusing some kids from one, assigning it to the other section of it to other kids, so it'll go to Power School. But so the mastery paths one intrigues me. That would be nice to have. So the pretest just would send them on to one path or another.
We have Shara Johnson, the Canvas goddess. She is online with us, so she is going to be dropping some things in the chat, giving you reference to the master paths, what that will look like, what that entails. So just appreciate her contributions tonight.
Yeah.
Deb, could you talk a little bit more about, so we're talking about software that helps you in your blended learning class. Recently, I know you've moved to Dino, D-Y-No. Tell me about Dino.
We at one time were using Land School, which I really liked for monitoring screens, but Land School was just not working in our system. It wasn't picking up kids, and it would first, if they weren't logged onto our network, then they were getting around it. So we kind of gave up on Land School, but we moved to Chromebooks this year. So my first question asking around was GoGuardian, but our tech guy went with Securely rather than GoGuardian, so we were still out of screen monitoring system. So Nick put a feeler out to all the NITA people, and several of them responded with this Dino project or product. So we've got 100 kids on it right now for $500 for the year. We're going to pilot it, but it's a screen management system. I can put in what websites they're allowed to go to. I can put in a blocking scheme that blocks certain websites. I can message kids. I can turn their screens off, all of them, some of them, if someone's someplace they're not supposed to be. It's got a question feature that I can send out, check for understanding kind of questions. It's got a messaging system that I can send live links. If I want everybody someplace at one time, I can send a live link. It's cross-platform, so I can either keep it on my desktop, or when I'm doing rotations, I bring it up on my iPad so I can just take it with me. I don't know, it's got a lot of nice features. And it all front loads out of Power School, so you just send them the data files they want, and your classes already appear out of Power School files that you've sent them. You can pick a screen, and put it up on your projector to share student work with it. So it's got a lot of nice features for it being relatively inexpensive. And we've had good luck with it. We've had a few glitches, but it's mostly because a name in PowerSchool was different than their Google login on their device. So we seem to have solved most of those as of today. So, but we're liking it.
Thank you.
Well, any last questions before I turn it over to Patty to kind of go through the Padlet a little bit? Okay, Patty, the Padlet that Shara had set up for us.
I guess what we could probably do is just have the teachers share a little more about some of the information that they've shared on the Padlet. So I guess we can kind of go left to right. And I think, Lauren, I think yours is on first. Do you have, is there any other information that you would like to share?
I guess I just shared a couple of examples of things. I tried to show something different or something new that I tried, just to kind of see what maybe a station rotation would look like in a high school classroom. There was a couple activities there. I kind of explained at each station what the kids would be doing or what they did. And I guess by the end of this one, these were a new group of kids that I never had them before. This is the first time we did stations, and they were having so much fun. It was loud, but they were having fun. And the next day was like, that was the best thing that we've ever done. And then I shared some examples of some of the products that they created, and just laughing while learning. And I don't know, there's something about just kind of standing back and watching that happen that I thought was pretty awesome. Let's see. Then there's a video. I mean, there's just little things that the kids did that I thought was pretty great. And then I'm not sure what I shared next.
So keep talking a little bit about this here, Lauren. And what I find intriguing again here is getting kids to demonstrate their learning, right? Asking them, and this is really a struggle for us as technology integration specialists, is communicating to teachers that the technology is to go beyond substitution. It's beyond making your worksheet a digital worksheet, but rather leveraging the technology to allow students to create. Tell us a little bit more. What are the students creating in your example?
Okay, so I guess before BlendED, these things would have been like text analysis and comprehension questions that they were answering out of a book. And now going a step further, well, I give them a little bit of direction, and then I just let them go. So here you're going to create a video showing me character motivation. So you're going to set up your character in this scene, and then you're going to show me what they did and how they were motivated to do that particular thing over something else in the next scene. And then just little things like that, I guess, to go beyond just answering a bunch of questions out of a book. Do we still do some of that? Yes. But now it's not every activity we're doing comes from some sort of comprehension question they have to answer, or so now it's show me, and it's very little direction from me. So I don't over tell them what to do or over tell them how they should be doing something, because I don't want them to think that it has to be one way. And some of the best stuff just comes from, here's my one line direction, and then they just go with it. And I think, okay, and then they're laughing and having fun. And then I view those things and I'm laughing and thinking, wow, this turned out better than I thought that it could have. So I guess that's been kind of nice to be able to do that sort of work. And I guess a huge comment from my principal when he viewed a station rotation was, wow, you did a lot of stuff in a very little amount of time. And I always tell the kids that I'm going to talk real fast for probably 5 minutes. You're going to get everything you need in that 5 minutes, and then you're going to go. And then they go, and they go through 3 or 4 stations or whatever it is in that time. And by the end, it's like you're exhausted, but look at what the kids did. And they had fun, and they got to do things that were enjoyable while learning. So
Thank you.
Yep.
Rose.
Okay, Rose,
Yes.
do you want to share some about the information that you displayed on the Padlet?
Sure. Let's see. The first thing I put on there was a little bit about my flexible seating and just kind of letting go of that control, the seating chart, which actually I think has been more difficult for my substitute teachers. Just trying to kind of prepare them for that and making sure that, you know, they know how I have it set up and why I have it set up that way. So the pictures in the window there, that's just how I decided. At first I had problems with kids kind of rushing to the room because, you know, everybody wants to sit in the blue comfy butterfly chair or whatever. And so I just ended up numbering, giving them each a day, and then they're stuck with that day each week. So my Monday kids are always Monday kids, and they know, like, oh, it's my day of the week to choose first. So then that eliminates the rushing to. And since I was the first teacher in my building to do any type of flexible seating, I just put up some stuff on my bulletin board about it. So, you know, kind of hoping that other staff members would check out those QR codes. And
So what are the QR codes about? Tell me.
They are some articles and videos about the positives of flexible seating.
Okay.
Just to, you know, bring out those positive points, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is an example of station rotation with my 8th graders. It's a big class, and so they work so much better in smaller groups just because of the, you know, their personalities, and so I typically do 5 rotations with them. And so when we do that, it lasts anywhere from 2 to 3 days, depending on, you know, how much time we spend and what we're actually studying. So I put some examples in there of just some different, you know, student-led stations, teacher-led stations. We are really focusing on close reading skills still in middle school. So hopefully by the time they get to high school, they kind of have a handle on that. And so that's been a really big teacher-led station that I do with my middle school English students. And then I guess just some of my favorite resources. I have really been when I was starting flexible seating and thinking about doing that over the summer, I joined that flexible seating Facebook group, and there is just a wealth of information, encouragement from other teachers, advice from other teachers. So.
Thanks, Rose.
You're welcome.
How about Brandon? He's not here either. Is anybody else? Is Deb?
Deb is here.
Deb, would you please share us a little bit more on your Padlet post?
Well, I just got the opportunity to put some things on today. So I just shared that we use Canvas, and then there's a pretty good size write-up there on Dino and how it's, you know, being used in our classrooms or what we're finding uses for it. Someone was talking earlier, probably one of the struggles that I've had, and Nick and I have discussed this, is in my head, the teacher rotations involve me being like the leader of one of the rotations, and you kind of get stuck there. And so I don't get to go see what everybody else is doing. So that's one of the things I've been working on, is how can I get that teacher monitored one going, but then still be able to check in on what my other rotations are doing, and, you know, not have to teach 4 straight hours of reducing fractions, you know, and over and over and over again. So I've been trying to play around with other things that I can do rather than me being a center of one of the rotations. But So yeah, there's just some pictures of the classroom with the alternative. Up above was a chart that I found this year works really nice because I just have the cards that I just rotate in out of the slots. What's your first rotation, second, and then what's that group doing today? It solves a lot of the, I'm not sure what I do in this rotation. Well, check out the board.
Sure.
So,
Deb, what grade level?
I have 5th and 6th grade math, which, you know, I put at the bottom that I really enjoy Class Kick and Wiser Me some, but Class Kick especially, because in math I needed an app that they could write on, that I could see them working through their problems and what their thought process was. So, you know, I've enjoyed that. In Canvas, we tend to do it on either a whiteboard app or on their whiteboard and take a picture of it and turn it in on Canvas so that I get more of that, how their process of thinking rather than all the true, false, and multiple choice that we see on everything. But for math, it's been great to have those touchscreen Chromebooks that we can use the touchscreen part of.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you. And so, any questions? Any other questions from anyone else? For any other questions?
I just want to make a comment, Nick. Thank you to everybody who popped in, ESU and teachers, and those of you that were sharing as well. You know, Lauren and Rose and Deb, for your work getting that Padlet ready and sharing tonight what you guys have been doing in your classroom and everything. And as multiple ones of you have said, you know, feel free to reach out to those others that are in this webinar with us, also out to the ESU folks or whoever, and reach out for that help. But thank you for taking the time tonight to join us off of school hours and from wherever you are, and being able to do that for us. I know we truly appreciate it.
Definitely. Thank you very much. It's 8:02. We like to end promptly and begin promptly. Thank you very much for your time and participation. We will try to do something similar in the future. Please feel free to reach out to any one of your ESU partners, to me specifically, to anyone else in your region specifically. We will see you next time for our upcoming webinar. The next webinar is the last Tuesday of this month, where we will be talking about assessment inside of your learning management system. That webinar is from 3:45 to 4:45 to 4:15 on the last Tuesday of the month. Thank you very much, everybody. Ciao.
See ya.